Invalidation is a form of emotional abuse when someone takes you down a notch by branding you unreasonable, illogical, or wrong, or pretending you don't matter. This might even happen through ghosting, which we talked about on last week's episode. Today, I'm revealing my true story of monkeys, a half-cigar, and the German Shepherd that saved the day in the Texas house where I grew up. So stay tuned.
Well, hi there and welcome. My name is Remy, like Do-Re-Mi. I'm a best-selling author and creator of the Get Unstuck Revolution. I help extraordinary women with big-ass dreams just like you who want to get unstuck from a life that doesn't work and get to where you know you need to be, into a life that's filled with passions and purpose. Now let's get started with today's episode.
Okay, let me jump off the screen here and change over to my laptop. Today, we're talking about a particular type of emotional abuse called invalidation. Invalidation is when someone takes you down a notch by branding you unreasonable, illogical, or wrong. They can do this in a whole bunch of ways, including ghosting, ignoring your needs, refusing to believe you, pretending you don't exist, or by simply telling you, either outright or through their actions, that you don't matter. The result? The wind goes out of your sails. You feel discredited, crippled, and even totally nullified, like you're disposable. This topic is so important to me. It was actually the first chapter in the first book I ever wrote, and that chapter was called Overcoming Invalidation. Because we want to find our way to success and not get tripped up by others who frankly don't care about our success in life. So if you aren't getting the success you want in full abundance, however you identify with success, and if you're wanting to tap into a greater knowingness and align with higher frequencies so that you can attract the success you're craving no matter what's happening around you, then this episode is for you. Let's open up to our hidden power and create something unimaginable, something totally unreasonable, something that maybe even seems impossible to kick your whole life and all your success into high gear for whatever success means for you. And today, I'm going to try and get you one step closer. As business owners, change makers, thought leaders, innovators, disruptors, or even if we haven't found the right fit in the world yet, whether we're talking about our relationships at home or at work, or when we're talking about our finances, sometimes we find ourselves in these little challenges that seem to move us away from success. So how do we overcome this? How can we find the clarity and courage we need so that we can unlock our hidden power? Well, it's time to be unabashedly, unapologetically, happily untethered to ego thinking, ours or someone else's, that can sabotage our success. It's time to tap into our soul connection instead so we can broadcast our hidden power from the hilltops and advance our soul's agenda. Today's episode is for you if you wonder, what is emotional abuse, or am I just too sensitive? How can I know if someone has a hidden agenda? What's the red flag? Or is there a more empowering, a better question than what have I done wrong? Yes, these episodes are about how to find your hidden power when you want to transform challenges into successes. I like to call it the audacity of alchemy. Because when we're feeling stuck, it's never the situation that has us stuck. It's our energy that's become stuck in doubts, worries, frustrations, indecision that can come from life's challenges, especially because of a spiritual injury we've experienced, some kind of a hidden trauma that's interrupting our soul's work. We can dissolve the obstacles in our path, including emotional invalidation, with a simple shift in energy. We can get out of doubt and move on with our life, because our choice of frequency changes the course of our journey so that we don't get stuck in the negative vibrations that block our success. These positive energies that we talk about so much are where we find the magic of alchemy, and using our hidden power means using these positive energies to effect transformation. So I promised to tell you my true story of monkeys, a half-cigar, and the German Shepherd that saved the day in Texas where I was born and raised. You know, when I was growing up, my best friend's house right across the street was my safe haven. Lisa, her two brothers, and her mom and dad were like characters out of some dusty Western novel. They all wore Wrangler jeans because is there any other jean in Texas? And any of them would lasso you right to the ground without a moment's warning, all in the name of fun, of course. Now, her dad perpetually had a half-cigar hanging out of his mouth, and her mom, under her sky-high beehive hairdo, this was the 60s, mind you, well, her mom got the kids to school, kicked off dinner hour with sweet tea and a well-chosen Bible passage, and made sure the formal living room furniture stayed untouched beneath its plastic wrap. Draws a picture, doesn't it? Well, one summer afternoon, Lisa and I were sitting at her breakfast table having one of those typical midsummer conversations. You know, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? We were luxuriating in our pre-cable, pre-internet, pre-BlackBerry suburban boredom while her younger brother was making explosion noises, the kind that only little boys can make, in the next room. And as we sat there talking about how very, very bored we were, Lisa's big brother, who wasn't old enough to drive but was definitely old enough to torture us, sat down in the chair just outside the breakfast room window where we were sitting. And he maneuvered his chair so he could just press his face up against the glass and begin squishing it into a series of contortions, one more bizarre than the next. Now, naturally, Lisa was torn between ignoring her big brother and loudly telling him just how incredibly stupid he looked. Ultimately, she decided that ignoring him would be the best way to retaliate, and needless to say, this was not the reaction he was going for. So he upped the ante. He took his finger and started to tap, tap, tap on the window. Tap, 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 over and over, waiting for the moment when Lisa would no longer be able to stand it and finally scream, "Stop it!" at the top of her lungs, and maybe shatter the window in the process. Except the thing was, he didn't realize how hard he was tapping on the window. Turns out he was tapping so hard it actually did shatter. And the look of shock on his face, well, it was priceless, especially when Lisa's little brother came sliding into the room in his socks. Remember Tom Cruise in Risky Business? He slid into the room in his socks and just shouted with unabashed glee, "You're gonna get it!" And my heart did absolute cartwheels. How cool was it to have brothers to spice up life? Well, Lisa's house provided a pretty stark contrast with my own home across the street. For starters, our custom-built home had no windows, literally no windows. My mom was afraid of peeping Toms. And inside, the plush, velvety carpeting that was ebony black and the go-away mat that was at the front door served as a warning to any poor, brave soul that was brave enough to venture up to our front door. And the bedroom next to mine was home to, I kid you not, a room of monkeys right next to my bedroom. Yes, my mother raised monkeys. Now, when it came to mothers, mine was definitely an original. And as we used to say in Texas, God bless her. One of the defining moments with my mother involved Lisa's older brother, the one with the overzealous window tapping. And it happened on a Friday night when I was about 12 years old. And I was home alone in my room while my mom was out. And suddenly, I heard a loud thud from the monkey's room that was right next door to my bedroom. Now, the monkey's room, it was right there next to mine, and it had a window, because, yes, they got a window, and that opened up into a huge two-story cage in the backyard that allowed them to run around and get fresh air and swing around on their monkey exercise equipment, as monkeys do. But I knew that that thud I heard didn't come from any typical monkey antics, especially when I heard a monkey screech, followed by what sounded like a lot of monkey hitting the wall that adjoined my bedroom. There was no mistaking it. Someone was breaking into the house. Now, looking back, it had to be quite a surprise to a burglar breaking into an ordinary-looking house in an upper-middle-income suburban neighborhood, only to have a monkey swing over and offer a bite of banana in the dark. But a home with no windows to break into should have been his first clue that this was no ordinary house. But that night, I was far from irony mode. I was in survival mode. Peering out of my bedroom door, I realized that if I ran for the front door to escape, I might be seen. And I didn't have a phone in my room, and living in a house with no windows, well, it didn't provide any other escape from harm's way. I would have given anything to be able to twitch my nose like Samantha, Remember Bewitched? So that I could just get the hell out of Dodge. I knew I'd be in big trouble if I ignored my mother's orders to not leave the house while she was out. But even if I had to be grounded for 1,000,000 years, I really had no choice but to bolt for the front door and take her wrath later. Besides, we were being robbed. She'd have to understand, right? So I tore down the driveway and across the street to Lisa's house. Her dad was there in the driveway, working on his car with that half-cigar hanging out from under his gigantic grin. Terrified, I blurted out to him that someone was breaking into my house. Well, that did it. That summer night in Texas, his grin quickly faded, and a split second later, Lisa's dad was very quickly and very methodically boot-stomping through the house, ordering Lisa's mom to get the cops out to us immediately, storming into his closet and emerging with the biggest shotgun I've ever seen. Well, he grabbed the family German Shepherd and walked her across the street to my house, where he shoved her in the front door and gave a command that I couldn't hear and probably didn't need to know. And then he perched down on one knee in my driveway, shotgun aimed at my house like some scene out of The Rifleman, until the police drove up. It all happened in what seemed like seconds. Well, the cops didn't catch the burglars, but they did say that the pool in the backyard was rippling like there'd been a 7.5 earthquake. The bandits must have been surprised by the dog and fallen into the pool when they tried to escape. You could actually make out two sopping wet, burglar-shaped outlines on the fence where they scrambled to get away. Now, I have to admit, it was all pretty exciting, although back then having a real cowboy in the hood was just a regular day in Houston, Texas. In fact, we probably had more pickup trucks and guns per capita than any other city in our nation. Still, it was quite a scene for an upper-middle-class neighborhood located just a stone's throw from NASA. When it was all over, I fell apart. I sat in the driveway, bawling, not because I was scared, but because somebody gave a damn about me. Lisa's dad, he stepped up, he listened, and he believed me. He took me under his arm and said I would be safe with their family that night. Well, later that night, my mom got home. She found my note saying that I was spending the night at Lisa's house, and I would explain in the morning why I broke the rules about leaving the house while she was gone. And I was really excited to tell her my incredible, heroic story, until I caught the look of venom that she shot at me. In my mother's eyes, there was no hero, and I was a liar. She accused me of making the whole thing up just so I could go across the street and flirt with Lisa's older brother. Even an offer to get a copy of the police report didn't matter one iota. I was a liar, and that was that. End of story. Well, that moment, along with too many other similar moments to mention, is what set up my lifelong pattern of dodging men, friends, and even entire organizations that might steal my exclamation points, because that moment was all about invalidation. Now, before we go into depth about what invalidation is, what to do when you're in the middle of it, and the ways we accidentally invalidate ourselves and our values, well, of course, I want to give you a quick reminder about the upcoming workshop that will help you unlock your hidden power. So if you're already knowing that you are ready to dissolve life's obstacles that are on your path to success, including invalidation, if you already know that you're ready to do your soul's work and to be a creator, then you might be ready for this amazing new tool to get you moving into some better patterns and frequencies where success can find its way to you. It's called the Alchemy Matrix, and it's going to help you design a life that you'd like to live. It's an interactive roadmap designed to help you solve problems, dissolve barriers, heal spiritual injuries, and bring in a lot of clarity so you can create a future that you'd like to see. Just a brief reminder that you can sign up to learn more about the Alchemy Matrix at successcircleworkshops.com. And I promise to tell you more about that in just a minute. So let's go back to invalidation and emotional abuse. Exactly what is invalidation? Well, invalidation is when someone takes you down a notch by branding you unreasonable, illogical, or wrong. And they can do this in a whole bunch of ways, including ghosting, ignoring your needs, refusing to believe you, pretending you don't exist, or simply by telling you either outright or through their actions that you don't matter. The result? Well, you end up feeling discredited, crippled, and totally nullified. And yep, that's a whole lot of ugly. Because to put it bluntly, invalidation is emotional abuse. Now, there's really no way to give invalidation its due without being offensive, because when you get right down to it, invalidation is offensive. It takes you and all your strength and glory and greatness and cuts you off at the knees. I know this firsthand because invalidation was a part of my life almost as long as I can remember. It's always been right there behind me, ready to step in and mess everything up when my defenses are down. Like a few years back when I came out of a relationship. Now, it doesn't matter if it was a romantic relationship or a friendship or a business or a spiritual relationship, because the relationship itself doesn't really matter. What matters is how it gets started, and even more importantly, how it ends. Now, I went into this relationship pretty much bursting with my own natural exuberance. I was one spunky little flower ball, living in the middle of what felt like hundreds of my own exclamation points, and sharing that love and excitement and basic joie de vivre, I always mess up that word, with whomever was lucky enough to cross my path. Joie de vivre, how's that? I'm French, but I don't always speak it very well. So you know how it is when everything is new and life is full of promise and possibility, but when the relationship ends, well, for me anyway, I came out a complete and total mess with all the passion and energy of a pile of limp noodles dumped on the kitchen floor. I was still the same person, so where did my spirit go and who took it away? Well, you guessed it, my old friend, invalidation. So how do we know when we're facing invalidation? Well, when somebody calls you a liar or says that you don't matter or they don't want you around or confront you in some other nasty, ugly way that makes you feel about this big, invalidation is pretty obvious. But there's another, more subtle kind of invalidation that can be especially treacherous. You know those moments when you're just zooming along in a relationship with a friend, a lover, a colleague, even an organization, and everything's fine, and suddenly in creeps this little bit of doubt. And you tap your chin and you say, something's not right, but I can't quite put my finger on it. That's a red flag. Something inside of you senses a problem with the relationship. Some part of you can feel that there's a hidden behavior or a hidden agenda somewhere, even though you don't know exactly what it is or why you sense it. Your reaction to those not so nice feelings may be to push them aside. After all, you don't want to be suspicious or mistrustful, right? We were raised to be nice, kind, considerate, compassionate. The thing is, your instincts usually don't lie. Why would they? They're your instincts. They work for you. And when those red flags start flying, that means your instincts are trying to tell you something. Maybe that someone is trying to control you. Maybe even that someone is lying. Now, I'll be the first to admit that this sort of thing used to puzzle me. I didn't really think I had any instincts at all, really, and felt like I was kind of stumbling through life without a clue. So at those times when doubts crept in, my first impulse was always to examine the situation a little further just to make sure I wasn't the one being unfair, hasty, or unreasonable, that I wasn't being rude. But when that voice says something's not right, I've learned that my instincts are always there, just waiting for me to pay some attention to them. Who knows how much pain I might have avoided had I skipped the obsessive introspection and just listened to my instincts instead. They were there to help me, and they're there to help you too. So how can you tell if someone is secretly invalidating you? Invalidating people are pretty much the cream de la crap of our society, which is probably why the hardest time to handle invalidation is when it shows up in a clever disguise, all dressed up as a well-meaning person who appears to have your best interests at heart. Because sometimes invalidation will hide so that someone else can impose their own view of the world on you and maybe even control you, which, let's face it, that's pretty gosh darn crappy. Now, I've been going through some devastating losses in my life. We all have. And I've always recovered, at least so far. The Energizer Bunny has nothing on me. And like the song says, I've always gotten by with a little help from my friends, but not always. Friends aren't always there to be the help that you'd hope for. Like, I'm remembering back to the time I caught my ex-husband in bed with another woman, and with my zero tolerance for that kind of behavior, threw him out without even looking back. We'd made an agreement about not cheating in our relationship, and it was cause for immediate termination with no pink slip warning. So I looked at his cheating as proof that what he really wanted was a boot to the street, and I was happy enough to oblige. Catching him in the act, red-handed, was definitely invalidating to my place in the relationship, but I could still hold my head high. I was handling it the way my heart and soul told me to, being true to my values and grabbing hold of the opportunity to move forward to a better situation where I could feel valued and respected. I still had optimism and hope. But on the way to my divorce attorney, a friend said to me, "Don't you do one more thing until you go talk to your minister." Well, if my optimism had been a balloon, she would have been a pin that popped it. Suddenly, with her words, my entire outlook changed. Doubts crept into my mind. Was I really doing the right thing, or was I wrong? Did I need to step back and try to understand the situation better? Boy, questions started circling overhead. My friend probably didn't mean to hurt me. She was expressing her truth, that a marriage is always worth saving. But her well-meaning question caused me to ignore my truth, that cheating was absolutely not to be tolerated. Her comment questioned my values and left me in doubt. In other words, her comments that support her values and not necessarily my values invalidated me. Looking back, I realized at the moment another person created doubt in my mind, even that's a red flag. At a time when it was crucial for me to follow my own truth, to feel strong in my own values and optimistic about my own future, someone took my hope for a future where my values mattered away from me. And because I had no idea it was happening, I was blindsided. It threw me into doubts. It invalidated my own values. And that's the point. Because what follows that kind of seemingly innocuous invalidation? Well, in my case, confusion. I ended up scouring my brain like a Brillo pad, searching for what I was doing wrong, for where I was falling short, for where I could have done something differently. Could I have saved my marriage? Did I subconsciously push my husband to cheat? I went on and on like this, and I was exhausted until another friend finally asked me, "Remy, what if it wasn't you?" And I finally realized that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't responsible for his actions. Maybe it was about him and not me. After all, that friend validated me. She validated my views. She validated my truth. She validated my everything. She gave me back my optimism, and instead of questioning my own judgment, she offered her support and showed that she had faith in me even when I suddenly didn't know how to trust myself. Now, don't get me wrong, most friends do want to help, but that alone doesn't always stop them from invalidating you, even when they don't mean to. For instance, have you ever experienced some sort of a loss or a challenge and had some well-meaning friend try to cheer you up with that age-old saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger"? Please, honestly, do those words ever make you feel better in the moment? Not me. Truth be told, they always make me want to let out a primal scream, the kind you let out that moment you decide that the roller coaster ride that was supposed to be fun may actually end in your untimely death. My other least favorite saying is, "There's a lesson in everything." I remember when I was dealing with one particular challenge and it got to the point where I actually ran outside, yes, a full-on run-for-your-life sprint, and I ran outside screaming at the heavens, "Enough with these lessons already!" It's not that I mind lessons, really, but I've always been kind of a silver lining kind of a girl, the kind of girl who looks for the positive, even in the depths of whatever sewage plant I find myself in. And I have to say that for me, it isn't exactly about the lessons. It's about finding a way to use the experience to find out exactly what I stand for and make the appropriate life policy to keep me from getting into that particular sewer again. That's the hidden jewel inside our life lessons, to discover what we stand for and create a life policy out of that experience for what we will and won't allow into our universe ever again. And to this day, I still ask, what have I learned about myself when a difficult experience is all over? But I do it from the perspective of developing a more authentic me. I want to build successes from that and not have to repeat the lessons. Make sense? So silver linings, life policies, and know thyself, those are basically 3 easy rules for living. Find the positive in every situation, create life policies as you go, and be true to your own values. Which brings me to my next question: can we actually invalidate ourselves? Now, you probably already know that blaming others and being critical of them doesn't usually solve the actual problem. You might do it anyway at times. We all slip up occasionally, maybe because it's secretly kind of cool to look at ourselves and decide we're perfect. We can feel a lot more justified when we go blast the other person, after all. Still, it's human nature to look within to try to find where we have fallen short. And for me, even though it turned out that I really, truly, definitely was in relationships with a toxic person, from my mother to work relationships to love relationships, it still had a tendency to chew me up on the inside and just shred me to the core. And why? I spent so much time looking within, it actually became a habit to look within. It became a habit to look at my shortcomings, to look for my shortcomings, instead of focusing on the very strengths that could get me out of a bad situation and save me from others. Instead of celebrating what a strong, smart cookie I was obsessed over my weaknesses. But when you keep scouring your soul for that hidden fault, that defect, that moment where you screwed up and made a very terrible thing in the world happen because you're just that horrible, then yes, Virginia, you can invalidate yourself. We all do, sometimes over and over again. The good news is we can learn to look inside and validate ourselves. We can look for the answer to the question, what did I learn, instead of what did I do wrong? Because when you look with optimism toward the future, when you stop bashing yourself over the head for past mistakes and instead grab hold of what's good and real and true inside of you, you get you back. And if you're the one who's invalidated someone else, hopefully today's episode has given you some insights into what thoughts and behaviors you'd like to update. If you've done anything to make someone else feel discredited, crippled, nullified, or like they don't matter, it's never too late to make amends, or at the very least, to better understand the behavior and course correct. And that's a great first step in getting the real you back, a creative vibrational being who can transform challenges into blessings simply by choosing a higher frequency in the way you think about things. So, I have an exercise for you today. I'd like you to think of someone in your life right now who is invalidating you, even in the most subtle way. Or you may have to look into your past history a little bit, or maybe someone you know who's experiencing it right now. But look over that situation where someone is being invalidating and look for those red flags that have been ignored. And instead of dancing in that story or making excuses, write down 3 truths about it. For instance, I don't feel like myself when I'm around that person, or I've tolerated their comments not knowing what else to do, or I don't normally live my life around negative people. Just look over a situation where you're being invalidated and write down 3 truths about it. And then I'd like you to write down what you really want and start choosing that instead of the story that's been playing in your head. If you found yourself in a pattern of losing your hope or optimism, find new ways to approach that part of your energy. Brainstorm at least 20 new approaches that will bring back your natural positive energies, and then try at least half of them. And that's the next part of your exercise here. Find at least 20 new ways to bring back your natural positive energies, and then after you brainstorm those, try at least half of them. Maybe it's making homemade ice cream in the winter, or putting up holiday lights in the summer. And so that's your exercise for today as we create or maybe even recreate a flow of positive possibilities to fulfill your soul's work and your soul's growth and the awakening that your soul is seeking as we unlock your hidden power and we create that flow for your success. All that's required from you is a shift in frequency, because your choice of frequency into a more positive energy can change the course of your journey. And this shift towards a higher frequency is really what this spiritual awakening journey is all about in so many respects. Well, I hope this helps you as you're using the powers of alchemy to transform challenges and obstacles into positive new successes, no matter what's happening around you. But if you still can't get your head around what's got you stuck, you can tell me about it. You can leave a question here, or if you're someone who has the audacity, the willingness to take bold risks, to transform challenges into successes, you can find out more about our events at successcircleworkshops.com. This is where you can learn more about the audacity of alchemy and how to unlock your hidden power. You'll get a personalized interactive roadmap that's custom designed to get you unstuck by unlocking your hidden power to create big magical changes. You know, alchemy. You'll learn to solve problems, dissolve barriers, and bring success to you. So don't wait. Go to successcircleworkshops.com and get your personalized alchemy matrix package right now. And here's what you'll get: a full-color workbook filled with hands-on exercises to inspire your creative energies, membership in your very own success circle for high-level masterminding and networking, your very own customized alchemy matrix to unlock your hidden power and bring success to you, and your very own personal unstuckologist. Remember, the Alchemy Matrix is the only tool of its kind, and it's only available here. So if you're ready to approach your life's challenges with audacity, if you're ready to finally banish frustration, indecision, and the negative spiral, if you're ready to watch success materialize right before your eyes, then go to successcircleworkshops.com and get your personalized Alchemy Matrix package now and watch the magic start to happen. Thanks for joining me today, and I'm wishing you a life filled with all the alchemy you need to bring success to you. Feel free to share this video with anyone you know who's feeling stuck, and I look forward to seeing you in one of our upcoming Success Circles. And you can find out more at successcircleworkshops.com.